Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys back to the Boombox Guru channel. I'm your host, LB. So, got another CD update for you guys. This is CD update number 12. Yeah, I really been cranking out these CD update videos. This is actually how I kind of started my channel up years ago. So, I decided to go back to this, man. But yeah, I'm going to talk about a few more CDs that I've added to my collection in the past, probably few years or few months. I think these I added probably like in the past few months or so, man. But without further ado, we're gonna jump right into this because I don't want this to be an overlong video. So let's get started. We're gonna talk about the first two that I have right now because they're by the same band. This is the Eric Gales band. This is the first two albums. The self-titled debut right here, released in 1991, and the follow-up, the sophomore album, Picture of a Thousand Faces, released in 1993, man. So let's talk about the self-titled debut. This came out in 1991. Eric Gales, him and his older brother, Eugene. This is Eric right here. This is his older brother, Eugene. This is their drummer, forget the drummer's name. Hubert Crawford. His name is Hubert Crawford. That's the drummer's name. But yeah, they released this album in 1991. Eric Gales was only 16 years old when this album dropped, but man, he was already a phenomenal guitar virtuoso. I mean, he was a straight up guitar master at this point. I mean, just phenomenal work on this album, man. Electrifying solos, some hard rock rhythms, some hard rock riffs, some little bit of funk here and there. Definitely some blues numbers, because these guys are from Memphis, man. So they cranked out a lot of good blues, a lot of great electric blues on this record. Just a solid record all around, man. I really enjoyed this album, but as much as I enjoyed this debut album, I gotta say that this one, Picture of a Thousand Faces, this is my favorite. I listened to this on Spotify not too long ago before I got the physical copy, and I gotta tell you, man, I was blown away. Like I said, I think the debut album was a solid, first time. I think it was a solid debut, man. I think they did a real good job. But for me, Picture of a Thousand Faces is the best. It's the better of the two. To me, the songwriting on here was just better. It seemed more fleshed out. The music on here was a lot more heavier. I mean, there's a lot of songs on here that you could categorize as heavy metal, or 90s metal in so many ways, man. Lots of gritty hard rock rhythms, man. I mean, the solos on here were just amazing. And Eric Gales, he actually sings more on this album. Eugene, his brother Eugene, did most or all the lead vocals on the first album, if I'm correct. Here, Eric and Eugene, they share the vocals, but Eric definitely has more. He definitely has more lead vocal performances on here than he did on the first album, which is another reason why I like this album a lot more than I did the first one, man. But man, I was so glad to find this, man. I found this on eBay. Found it was a lot of copies on eBay for a relatively reasonable price. The debut album, excuse me, let me grab this right here. The self-titled debut, I found this on Amazon. I think it was like $16. Very good condition. But yeah, I'm very glad to have both of these albums in my collection, man. Because I discovered Eric Gales like earlier this year through a channel called Truth and Rhythm, where they did an interview with him. His name kept coming up in other interviews, so I checked out his music, and I was impressed. I dug it, and I hope one day I can see him live, because I do know he comes to my neck of the woods quite often and does shows. But listen, if you want to get up on Eric Gales, I recommend both of these albums as starting points, man, because they're just phenomenal records. Great rock music right here, man. So definitely check these albums out if you're interested in listening to Eric Gales. Highly recommend both of them, man. But this one, Picture of a Thousand Faces, is my favorite, man. But both of these albums I highly recommend as starting points, man. Okay, so moving on. So these next three CDs are actually by the same band again. And so we're gonna talk about Def Leppard. I decided I wanted to kind of get into some of Def Leppard's music post the Steve Clark era, post the 1980s. So I wanted to dabble a little bit in the 90s and later stuff. So the first one that I want to talk about is Retroactive, released in 90, I think either 92, 93. So let me get a little bit of information about this album. Retroactive is actually a compilation album of sorts. They released the album basically as a way to close the chapter on the Steve Clark era of the band. As you know, Steve Clark, he was the lead guitarist of Def Leppard, and he was also the principal songwriter, I believe. I think he was responsible for a lot of their biggest hits as well as their sound back in the early 80s, or well, the 80s period. He was responsible for a lot of that sound that they had. But you know, he passed away in 1991. I think, was it alcohol poisoning? I'm not so sure. But yeah, Retroactive is a compilation album. Yeah, like it says here on Wikipedia, it says Def Leppard used Retroactive to break the. No, excuse me, let me start over. After releasing only 5 albums over the course of a 12-year period, Def Leppard used Retroactive to break that habit, provide a treat for diehard fans, and close the door on the Steve Clark era of the band. Many of the tracks had previously been released as single B-sides. According to singer Joe Elliott, the concept behind the album was envisioned after the success of the Two Steps Behind single. The song had originally been demoed solely by Elliott as an electric version in '89. It was subsequently recorded by the band as an acoustic ballad at the suggestion of Phil Collins. Let's see here. But yeah, this was basically their way of closing the chapter of that Steve Clark era of the band. And this was also the first album that they did with Vivian Campbell. You know, he replaced Steve Clark after he passed. But I gotta say, Retroactive is honestly one of my favorite Def Leppard albums. A lot of the songs on here were well written, well put together. I think a lot of these songs should have actually been, if they hadn't have been previously released, I think I like this way better than Adrenalize. I'm gonna put it to you like this. You know, if it hadn't been for some of these songs being already released as B-sides and so forth, I would have said this would have been the better follow-up to Hysteria, honestly, because it was way better. To me, this album it's not as overproduced as Hysteria and Adrenalize. To me, it kind of has some of that rough, rawer sort of aesthetic to it. I guess maybe because it came out in the 90s, and you know, grunge was more of the flavor of the day at that point. But it's just got like a grittiness and a heaviness to it that, you know, the previous 2 records didn't really have all that much. But just great music. And like I said, they used this album to close the chapter on the Steve Clark era of the band. But it's actually one of my favorite Def Leppard albums, man. I actually listen to it quite a bit. You know, there might be 1 or 2 songs on here that I might skip because it might be a little bit too cringy, or I don't think it's all that great. But for the most part, this album has a really good, solid collection of tracks, man. So definitely don't skip out on this one. It's definitely an album worth listening to if you're a Def Leppard fan, or maybe you don't have to be a diehard fan. It's just definitely an album that's worth checking out. And if you look at the cover, I thought was something interesting. From a distance, the cover looks like a skull, but it's actually a woman sitting in front of a mirror, and she's got all kinds of like items and stuff on her dresser. But that's actually what it was. It's a woman sitting in the mirror, but I think it's intentionally done that way to make it look like a skull. But I thought that was neat. But yeah, this is definitely one of the few Def Leppard albums post Steve Clark that I think is worth listening to. All right, hold up, let me switch these around. Kind of want to go in order. So still talking about Def Leppard. The next album on here is Slang. This came out what, 96? Yeah, 96. This is Slang. I think this was the follow up to after Retroactive. I think I got this off of eBay. So I'm just gonna flat out tell you, I don't like this album. I don't like this album. I actually had a friend that tried to warn me about about it, but I just said, let me judge for myself. I probably should have just stuck to streaming uh the album on Spotify, but for some reason I wanted a physical copy. I don't know. But yeah, I don't like this album that much. And I've tried multiple times to listen to this record, to really get into it, and I don't like it. For me, the album starts off good. I think the first like two songs on here I think are pretty decent. They're pretty solid tracks. I kind of get this vibe from those songs where they were going for like a sort of 90s industrial rock slash maybe post grunge alternative kind of vibe, which I didn't mind because I'm a fan of that stuff as well. But once they get to the title track Slang, I think it's the title track Slang because like I said, I don't know. I don't listen to this album that much. Things just take a turn for the worse. They just start going into these kind of, I don't know what they were trying to do, honestly, with this record. I don't know what they were trying to do. It started off good, and then they just went downhill from there. Now, I do know that there's one more song, like, towards the middle of the album, that was actually a good one, too. It was a pretty good hard rock number. But then after that, they just kind of go back to doing things that just don't sound very good. And it's an 11 track album, which, from a surface point of view, that may not seem like a whole lot, but a lot of these songs are pretty long, so it was a bit grueling to getting through getting through this album, the times that I did listen to it. But yeah, I just don't really like it, man. It's just not that good of a record, man. And what really troubles me about this album is that you can hear at certain points where the band kind of had like a certain kind of vision of where to go, but then I guess somebody had the idea like, no, let's do this right here and do this. Let's do something different right here, and kind of just messed up the whole cohesiveness of the album. If it hadn't been for that, I think Slang would have been a pretty good record, But unfortunately, they didn't really stick to the focused division, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't listen to it that much. I might give it another spin sometime soon to see if things have changed, because I haven't listened to it in a while, but I highly doubt it. But I don't really like it, and I know a lot of die-hard Def Leppard fans, or should I say stans, because these are people that seem to think everything they've done has been great. I know a lot of them consider this to be one of their, like, an underrated album in their discography, but I don't think it is. I think it's deserving of whatever accolades or lack thereof it has gotten. But that's just my personal opinion. But my advice, don't buy a physical copy unless you just want a part of your collection. I would say just go stream it. That's just my opinion. Okay. And the last in the Def Leppard, the Leppard CDs right here, is Songs from the Sparkle Lounge, released in 2008. Is that right? 2000? Yeah, 2008. Songs from the Sparkle Lounge. All right, so aside from me just brutally criticizing Slang, Songs from the Sparkle Lounge is actually pretty darn good. This is probably Def Leppard's best album in their latter career. And it's honestly, I don't know what Def Leppard is doing. I don't know what they're thinking. But this right here, this is what Def Leppard needs to do. I know they don't want to be considered a heavy metal band, but this album right here is a solid hard rock album. Solid hard rock tracks on here. Ain't nothing too overly complex. They're not on here trying to do weird experimental kind of pop stuff like they were trying to do with Slang. They're not trying to do that. It's catchy. It does have a pop feel to it, but it's hard rock though. It's good melodic hard rock, and that's where Def Leppard shines. Excuse me. And they really did their thing on this album. Why they've chosen not to kind of stick with this niche, I don't know. Because even a lot of people, even people who haven't listened to Def Leppard in years, heard this album and was saying that, whoa, this is the best thing Def Leppard has done in years. A lot of people were saying that this album got a lot of positive reviews. People saying that it was a return to form for Def Leppard, that they sounded like a band that was reinvigorated. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. The albums that they done after this have not held up the same as songs from the Sparkling Lounge. I don't know, man, but I really like this album. I actually listened to it quite a bit. It's got, like I said, 11 songs. They're not overly long. They're not overly complex. They're not trying to do anything like experimental or trying to, I don't know. They're not trying to do anything but just be solid hard rock songs, and that's where the Def Leppard shines, man. And I wish that they would kind of just realize that that's what they need to do, and they need to stick with it. I mean, I know they're artists, and I know they want to try to do these things. I know they want to try to be a pop band, but they're a hard rock band. That's what they are. But they did a great job with this album. This one I would highly recommend, along with Retroactive, as an album to definitely check out if you're interested in listening to some of the latter career Def Leppard albums. This one is a highlight amongst all of that stuff. All right, so definitely don't sleep on this album. Okay, and last in this video is actually Motorhead. This is Another Perfect Day, released in 1983 originally. This is a reissue, of course. I don't know when this reissue came out. 96 or 2004, one of those years. But it comes with bonus tracks, man. So I started like trying to dig into like a lot more other Motorhead albums, because the only Motorhead albums I really had were Overkill, Bomber, and Ace of Spades. And I had 1916. I had that one. So I wanted to dig into some other albums, and this was one of them that I decided to check out. And I gotta say, Another Perfect Day is actually becoming one of my favorite Motorhead albums. I really enjoyed this record. This was the first album that they did without Fast Eddie Clarke, as he departed the band after the Iron Fist album. He was replaced by Brian Robo Robertson, who was best known for playing in Thin Lizzy. I think he played in another band called Wild Horses, but he's best known for his time in Thin Lizzy. And it's the only album that they did with him. You can read stories about why that was. But, man, this was an amazing album, man. It's definitely a little bit more melodic compared to the previous Def Leppard albums, but it's still got that grit. It's still gritty, still heavy, still raw. I really enjoyed the solos, like Robbo. I was calling him Robo. Robbo, man, he shreds throughout every song on this album. He's killing it on the guitar, man. Really like that. I mean, the band just sounds great, man. Lemmy sounds great vocally. His bass is top notch on here. Excuse me, forgot I'm about to forget the drummer's name. Phil the Filthy Animal Taylor. His drumming impeccable. Just a great record. Just a great record, man. I mean, come on, back at the Funny Farm, it was probably one of the best album openers in metal. One of the best album openers ever. That song just kicks off. Dancing on Your Grave, another highlight. Fun fact, the band Sepultura got their name from that song, because the word Sepultura, that's Portuguese for graves. So they got their name from that song. Let's see here. Marching Off to War, I Got Mine, Tales of Glory, Die You Bastard. Every song on here is just solid and consistent, man. Just really enjoy this record, man. And I know that when this album originally came out, a lot of people at that time didn't like the record. It didn't get a lot of good reviews, but I believe in retrospective, people have reevaluated the album and they've looked at it as a great record in Motorhead's catalog. People look at it as an underrated classic. People saying that it's probably one of Motorhead's most unique albums in their discography. But I highly enjoy it. It's definitely become one of my favorites in the discography. I listen to it just as much as I listen to Overkill. And Overkill is my favorite Motorhead album. But I listen to it quite a bit now. So I highly enjoy this record. Once again, man, if you ever come across Another Perfect Day, if you never sat down and listened to it, definitely check it out. Don't listen to those old reviews about the record. This is a really great record. Probably probably the most underappreciated, one of the most underappreciated Motorhead albums, honestly, in my opinion, man. So definitely check it out. All right, so that's it for this CD update video. Hope you guys enjoy my choices for this video. If you like this video, go ahead and do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up and give me a like. Helps with the algorithm. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button and tap that bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop new videos. I want to give a huge shout out to all my old and new subscribers. I want to thank everybody that's been taking the time to watch the videos and support my channel. I really do appreciate it. And as always, hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.